Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends Leaders, and today it's great to have Adam here. Adam, you've built a pretty interesting piece of technology. You're helping a lot of people that have crypto be able to really take advantage of what those assets can do for them through lending and through giving them access to capital. And you built something that's pretty interesting, also through the savings side of things and helping people earn savings on crypto. And you've been a trusted company in the space for some time. When now there's been certain people that bad actors, and you've been able to really build something great that's been long lasting. And I've been looking forward to seeing the growth of it, and I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thank you, Ben. And it's been the best thing about it. It hasn't been just me. We've got a great team, and that's been a really enjoyable part of this journey is working with a lot of different smart people along the way.
Awesome. So early on, Adam, how did your passion for crypto and business leadership begin?
Yeah, I actually owe my really good friend and co-founder his credit for introducing me to Bitcoin. My background is in engineering and business, and so we met at business school as well as a few other of the leadership team members at Ledn. And so going into energy, going into engineering, I tried to think of what would make the most use of my skill set coming out. And renewable power was developing when I graduated in 2008 and thought that that sector would be something that I can make an impact in. And I really liked the connection of utilizing my technical background in engineering and then obviously understanding that the connections and relationships that business brings. And so launched my career in renewable energy development and spent about 10 years building out different wind, solar, hydro projects, and even biogas projects really globally. We looked at projects pretty much everywhere. And what was interesting when I first started learning about Bitcoin through Mauricio, my co-founder, is that I noticed a really similar deja vu in how misunderstood the asset class was. And so when anything's new, people are trying to figure it out, and people are asking a whole bunch of questions, and sometimes they're asking maybe the incorrect questions, and you can't say it that directly, but you have to kind of understand why are people concerned about that? What's causing that? And I think from that, it really presents opportunity. And so when I started learning about Bitcoin, which was now 7 years ago, it reminded me when I first started learning about renewable energy, which was 20 years ago in that kind of nascency of the asset class. So yeah, it's been a really fun journey, but I'm happy to dive in and talk about what we've done in it. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So, Adam, you have a background being at Dream Unlimited, which is a large real estate management company as well. In addition to what you mentioned from environmental and other aspects, what would you say were the most important things that you learned from your experience working at different companies that helped you really create your own?
Absolutely, by far, communication. And so, just kind of building on what I mentioned about misunderstanding of things is if you want to have anybody to say yes, especially when it comes to where they're going to invest their money or buy a product, you have to make sure that they're comfortable with understanding what exactly you're selling, what you're asking them to invest in. And the quicker you can get someone comfortable with that, the faster and easier that is. And so, when it comes to investing, again, drawing from my time in renewable power, then into Bitcoin, it was what type of language are people making decisions on? And so I used to joke when I was in the energy business that my job was converting kilowatt hours into dollars. And what I meant was like, I couldn't say, hey, do you want to invest in this power project that's 450 megawatts and puts out X amount of kilowatt hours per year? And sure, that makes sense to the engineering crowd. But if you're speaking to the finance crowd, they want to know how much money is it going to make? How much things are going to cost if things go wrong, and really putting it into language they understand. So trying to understand the language of a decision maker and then making it easy for someone to say yes was great career advice I got at Dream actually was how do you make it so someone's comfortable and there's less friction for them to get to that outcome. And so when we started the business at Ledn in Bitcoin, there was a similar misunderstanding of language and concepts. And we said, okay, what's really causing hangups here? And actually, the angle that we decided to go in, which was providing loans against Bitcoin, was because we thought it was the closest asset and investment class to something that the folks I was used to working with would get comfortable in. So just trying to make it akin to something that they're used to, drawing analogies. I love using this analogy because I think it's true for it is, I like to travel. I'm sure you do as well. And hopefully a lot of listeners do. And it's like, let's say you live in New York all your life and, you go to Paris. It's your first time in Paris. Well, the language is different. You don't have the map, but day by day, you try to draw analogies into what you've experienced. And so he's like, oh yeah, this coffee shop is kind of like the one I go to. The menu's a little different, and you're always trying to draw these comparisons as to what you know. And so that's what I find is the best way to communicate and get someone comfortable is how do you draw analysis or sorry, comparison to something they know and build on that and get people comfortable with that. So that's definitely what I appreciate with my learning dream and something that I try to do every day and get people speaking the same language.
So you mentioned that communication is like so important. One of the aspects of communication is how you communicate your products, and you've been able to create. I think you had four different pillars of your business. But good part of that is the credit and savings products, and having those products available for digital assets. Like, how do you go and communicate, whether it's that product or other ones? How do you communicate those to people that maybe are unfamiliar with you early on, and start to get traction for your company?
Yeah, so I'll talk about what you don't do, and that's what we did at first, is you don't talk about what the product does. You talk about how it helps the person that's going to use the product. And so the first product that we brought to market was a Bitcoin-backed loan, and we started to say when we launched it, who wants a loan? Well, typically nobody. And the reason is the loans cost you money. But the good thing about loans is they allow you to buy or invest in something else that you need. So there's an outcome-based, piece. And so we say at Ledn, again, to compare us to traditional finance, you don't sell a mortgage, you sell a home. And the mortgage is the tool that lets you buy that home. So how do we sell homes and what we do? Well, we're in the business of giving loans against Bitcoin. So we help people not sell their Bitcoin. That's the value proposition. That's what we're selling is a solution to not having to sell your Bitcoin. And the loan is the tool that it forms part of that solution. The other
Why is
products
it so
that
important
yeah.
that people?
Oh,
Oh,
sorry, go ahead,
continue,
Ben.
Adam. It froze for a second. Keep going.
Yeah, no problem. The other products that we offer are our growth account products, and these products allow people to earn interest on stable coins. So we support USDC and the other major stablecoin, USDT, Tether. And we also have growth accounts for the two major crypto assets being Bitcoin and Ether. And so these allow each client to earn interest on their asset. And that's another kind of solution-based set is not everyone may need the tool that a loan provides, but they may want to earn more interest or earn more additional assets. So that's how we help them as well.
So when you're trying to pitch to somebody and explain to them, that you've got cryptocurrency, you have Bitcoin, you can maybe use this and not have to get rid of, you not have to give it up. Maybe there's a clientele that was already looking for that, but there's probably a lot of other clients that you have that weren't necessarily looking for it, but then when they found out about it, it was something that was interesting. How do you go and get like those types of people? Is there something you do marketing wise?
Yeah, that's definitely one of our biggest challenges is it's still a pretty nascent industry. For people to benefit from Ledn, they have to have crypto assets. So we're more of a wealth management platform on top of your existing crypto assets. We're not an exchange. We don't claim to compete with the exchanges to help you buy your first Bitcoin or other assets that you may be looking to accumulate. So it's really understanding once clients have found Ledn, we often ask clients, of course, the basics, how have you heard of us? What are you looking for? And at first it was meeting people face to face. So when Mauricio and I started the business, we went to a lot of different conferences and built trust and engagement that way. And then once we had a big enough audience, we asked clients to refer other clients that they may know in the space. And so that was helpful. And then we also focused on channels. So in the past, we've actually done some podcast advertisements, very specific to Bitcoin. And then again, still attending different conferences. We've experimented a bit with digital advertising through Google, Facebook, or Meta now. But it has to be very targeted. And that's the challenge because the asset class is still so nascent. So yeah, the typical channels though.
So there's four different core products of your business. Niching is I mean, some entrepreneurs find niching to be super important to really have your area and your focus. How did you determine that these were going to be the four products that you were going to really focus on, and how has that led to your success?
Really paying attention to client behavior. And so what we tried to do was understand why clients are taking a loan. We created a variation of our loan early on called B2X, which is a loan to buy more Bitcoin, because we found clients were using our loan products to move money and then purchase more digital assets. So we allowed clients to do that in one place. Talk to your customers, ask them what they like, and equally importantly, what they don't like, and then iterate, understand the behavior, and keep building on it.
It's just you got to be conscious of how the customers are and listen to them. But
Of
are they
course.
always are the customers not always right, but they could be putting you in the right direction? Is that how you view it?
That's a great point, Ben, because sometimes we make decisions or form opinions based on a very small sample size. And being a little bit critical, often people will tell you a bit more about what they don't like than what they do like, right? And so, as you're soliciting feedback, it's what you really try to have to get a sense of. Is this one-off? Can we build a product around this? Are all clients experiencing this pain point? And there's a little bit of a gut feel there, right? And then obviously testing. So if it's a simple change, you'll probably do it. If it's a big cost to make the change, you have to be really, really careful about doing that. And if it's improving, generally it's just more about, well, is it worth the investment? But if it's removing something else to change something, you have to be careful that you're not, alienating a certain set of existing clients that may like it.
Hmm. Interesting. So how do you actually create, Adam, like a product like the dollar backed loans for Bitcoin? Like what actually goes into making something like that, enabling the right people to sign up for it that have issues within the technology of it overall?
Yeah, so the technology is one piece of it. That's more about the delivery. But the interesting thing about lending products is they actually each have two customers. So you have a borrower and you have a lender, and both have to be equally happy, right? And obviously higher interest rate benefits the lender, lower interest rates benefits the borrower. So it's a balancing act to make sure all the terms are fair, and you can actually create a market. So that's one of the biggest challenges of it, but also an opportunity to get that right. And we think about that a lot: is how do we get that balance right? How do we make sure it's sustainable? And you can offer, and that we've seen actually different crypto lending companies come to market with this problem, is that say, oh well, if we just change this, and this, the demand will be unlimited, and the demand is, but the supply may be zero, right? And so it's like, anyone will buy anything that's basically free. So, what you're trying to do is provide enough value that someone's willing to pay for it. And of course, then you can actually have a sustainable business, which I think, when you explain and you get right, clients really respect it as well, right? No one wants to be involved in something that isn't sustainable, too good to be true, in that aspect of it. So that's the key piece is really balancing and sustainability.
Yeah. I was going to touch on that, a little bit after, but I think that it's because it's interesting, like the way you communicate, people have kind of have taken advantage of certain companies in the space and the way they have communicated. And some of those companies also just haven't been as honest. And it seems like you found a good balance between that. Like, how do you figure out like how to be, something a forward facing, willing to take on different types of maybe risk, but also having that ability to just be sound financially? Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to making sure the company is sustainable, it comes down to what do you want to be, both as individuals, managers, and owners of the business, and associate with the business, right? Because you can do things really quickly, but if it all goes away in a year, what's the point of it all, right? So I think for us as a team, our reputation is probably the most important thing, right? Everyone wants to earn, do well financially, but if you slip up and you take additional risk, and everything is gone in a year, and there's a bunch of people that are upset because they don't think you treated them fairly, I don't really understand why that's a great outcome. So I think a lot about the weight of that and making sure that we make decisions that you can be proud of. And we've been through some tough times, right? There was, a massive lending crisis in 2022, and it wasn't just FTX. There was a bunch of other large events that happened. And through that, as we were managing through that, we really thought, every day, and every critical point was that, if there was a tape replayed, can we be proud of this decision, right? Because I think that's what, at the end of the day, what all people care about is you're going to have to make some tough calls, but as long as you can explain why you made those tough calls and you feel honest about them and you can be proud of them, that's the best you can do, right? And so that's where like we just try to really think about is like, you're making some decisions behind closed doors because you're running the business. But if everything was transparent and open, would you still make the same decision? And when you operate with that way, it's actually far lower stress to say like, to operate that way than it is to try to, concoct some story or take some additional thing, because then there's only one source of truth. You're just operating with a pretty like even keel. And so that's how we do it. I think overall that simplicity is key to everything in business, is just, keeping the decision making as simple, being as honest with people. And that's even not just, honesty within yourself and clients and manage with that, but it's even within the employees of our company, right? So, we try to have really open dialogue with everyone in Ledn. We share financials openly within the company, because people want to know what is going on. And if you surrounded yourself with smart people, they're going to know when you're not operating that way. And so it's just far lower stress to do things. And I'd say that's one of the core reasons culturally that we've made it through some pretty tough times in the crypto industry and now have the benefit of growing again.
I think that's a pretty good way to look at it, and yeah, I think you're definitely right. I mean, the more honest you are with your customers, with the people that work for you, your company overall, like it's just less stress and leads to better outcome. So, you're based in, I think, the Cayman Islands, right? And that's an ideal place for you guys to be. What do you think that, other countries, for example, like the US, there's a lot of talk right now about the kind of regulation that's needed there. What do you think that most countries need to be like, and what should they implement to really be forward facing and embracing companies that are in your space, the crypto space?
Yeah, I think, generally, especially large, complex organizations, which, you could say, a large country like the US is really just a giant organization, people trying to order themselves the right way and figure out what to do, is you kind of make decisions when you have to, right? And there's so many challenges, things coming up. And I think when you think about the Cayman Islands is a financial center. And so if they don't get regulation of a financial asset, like cryptocurrency, right, it's going to be challenging for them to kind of adapt and grow into the new age. So I think that's why somewhere like Cayman was forward thinking and put, great regulation in place, and that's why we were able to establish and obtain a regulatory approval there and grow. I think the U.S. has a different aspect when it comes to it. Obviously, the U.S. is the financial center globally. The dominance of the dollar is massive consideration for how they implement regulation around it. There's obviously concerns around stability of banking, AML, other things, but I think because everyone in a way has very different outcomes to gain and very different outcomes to lose based on how digital assets get implemented. I think that's why we're in such a framework, a kind of disjointed framework right now. Like, for example, in the European Union, they don't want to see the dominance of the euro go away, right? And so there's a lot of discussion last week as MiCA came into place about how to make sure that from what the U.S. would be the proliferation of U.S. dollars via stablecoins, how that may not, how that would impact the proliferation of the euro, right? And so, again, because these different economic zones and different outcomes and different current situations, they're looking at regulation very differently. But I think to sum that up, the opportunity is if for governments to understand it, you kind of get to be, what the U.S. has done for, offering securities and all the amazing financial innovation that's happened in the U.S. Plus, like what Switzerland has for wealth management, and how they obviously, if you're super wealthy privately, you want to do private banking in Switzerland. So there's different zones of where you may want to keep money or what activity you want to do. And I think the government that gets this right has a massive opportunity because the assets move so fast, right? So it's not like, hey, how are we going to set up, and you're going to go. And, think about opening up a bank account in Switzerland like 100 years ago, right? It would take you you'd fly there. Planes exist, I guess, just started to have commercial aviation, but you set up, but with digital assets, things can be done. Like you can be open in minutes, right? So I think the opportunity that to gain a lot of wealth, especially maybe for slightly smaller economies, like where I grew up in Canada, is pretty amazing. And then there's obviously all the job growth and things that comes along with it. So very long-winded answer, but I'm pretty fascinated about this because it combines a whole bunch of things. And I think the interesting thing is the asset class doesn't really care. It'll kind of go to the point of the lowest friction. COVID taught us that people can work wherever they want and still be decently efficient. So it's going to be interesting what plays out.
Yeah. It definitely will be. I think that right now we're at an interesting point where there hasn't really been like a great regulatory framework that's been placed yet in certain countries. And like you mentioned, I mean, it could really make or break what happens, but the industry will thrive. But for certain places, I mean, they want to have that dominance of their currency and, and the regulatory framework they provide that will determine what happens. And for some of these companies, like it will make or break them. So we'll see.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So, Adam, I think the last number I saw was you guys processed like 690 million in loans in like Q1, which is pretty substantial. What would you say have been some of the most fundamental aspects of being able to accomplish, that type of scale?
Putting together a great team is number one. So, when you're starting off to build it, you have to make sure you have all the various skill sets that you need to run a financial services business. So that's been at really investing in technology and making sure that you automate whatever you can. And like just that's continuing, even more now with some of the innovations that are coming through. And then, the other aspect of it is understanding the capital side of the business. So really
Mhm.
making sure we have deep relationships to be able to access that level of borrowing or lending, depending on what side of the coin we're on. And again, this is built up over time, right? So over 6 years, you can't borrow hundreds of millions of dollars on day one. You have to build a reputation and prove that you have all the right processes, security, and expertise to be able to access that. So that's been key. And yeah, I think we're now at 850 of retail loan originations from inception. And we're over, I think we'd be over 5 billion on the institutional side as well. So there's been a lot of volumes over the last 6 years.
That's great to see the growth. So just the last question I have, Adam. What do you aspire to accomplish now? What are some of your short-term or long-term goals, for the company and then also maybe personally too?
Yeah, I'll go first on the company. Really with what happened with the crypto lending crisis of 2022, we had an opportunity to double down and show the world that we are the best in class digital asset lender. And so that's what we're focused on doing. Is you'll see incremental features added to our loans to make it easier to use. And just listening to our clients as much as we can. So we're rounding that out. Regulatory will be a big push over the next 18 months. So I mentioned MiCA in the EU. We're also doing our best to unlock some other US states that we would like to, there's clear demand for that we'd like to go deeper into. And then we have a lot of opportunity in the emerging markets as well. So Ledn, because our history and Mauricio, my co-founder, being from Venezuela, we've got a lot of clients in the LATAM region. And so I think the benefit of this industry is you can grow quicker in different geographies than you can because you're not, shipping physical materials, but the regulatory piece is huge. And then personally, I want to make sure that I can continue to be a better leader. So really listening to those around me, understanding what they need. I think the key thing that we try to do within the company and that I try to emphasize and grow on is context, and that's my obsession with communication. Is before you can talk about solutions to a problem, you have to understand: are we all solving the right problem? Do we have the right goals in mind for the outcome we're trying to achieve? And let's talk about that first. So give ourselves space to do that. And so this year, I especially want to grow into that and lean into that even harder because I think that's an opportunity to accelerate my career, but obviously de facto with Ledn. And then I think there's other piece of it is making sure again on the personal aspect of it is that people have a great experience at Ledn, and so really focused on giving great opportunities to people. I love when people do well, and hopefully we can keep providing more opportunities and grow our company that way. So yeah, it'll be an exciting year ahead, and looking forward to making everyone proud and growing our client base.
Definitely sounds good, Adam. I mean, I think that there's a lot people can learn from you, so I appreciate you coming on, especially the communication aspect. It's interesting how you really highlight that as something that's so essential, and I'm sure it saves a lot of time and money as when it's done correctly and everybody's aligned on the same wavelength to work together well as a team. And I think that that's one great lesson you had here, and I'm sure that people will learn a lot more. So thanks for coming on, and I wish you much success.
Thanks so much, Ben. I appreciate your time.